Alright guys, welcome back. It is Saturday. It is hot as heck outside. Closed up early today and came home in the air conditioner. Wanted to make a video and I just, it was too hot at that shop to stay there today. So I figured I'd come home because I could talk about this at home. It doesn't really matter. I wanted to touch on some stuff with warning lights on the dashboard. There's a concern that I have with people these days not understanding the lights and their meaning on a warning on a car. Okay, a lot of for years now, a lot of people would drive with a light on, whether it be like an oil warning light because the sensor was bad or whatever, or what have you. They would just keep driving. It's a big misconception for many years now that just because a light is on, it doesn't really mean there's a problem. There's a they would call them dummy lights years ago. While this may be true in some situations that the light is not going to cause you a drivability issue or a failure where you're going to break down, that is not always the case. And I'm going to touch on some stuff here that you guys really need to be informed about as consumers. Okay, the techs already know this stuff. There's nothing they're going to learn from this, so it is what it is. But we definitely need to spread the word. There's so much to talk about with this stuff. I want to touch on some of the stuff that is rather basic and the basic misconceptions of them. Okay, first of all, check engine lights. I have cars that come in for complaints, whether it's a brake problem or whatever, and the check engine light will be on in the car, and I'll ask the customer, do you want me to check the check engine light for you and see what's wrong? And they'll say, no, that's been on for years, I don't care about that. Okay, so first of all, you can't pass inspection in New Jersey with a check engine light on. So if you're not due for inspection, I guess you can drive it as long as it's not causing you a problem, right? Here's the problem with that. If you continue to drive, say you have I'm just going to give you a random example here. If you have a code for a small evap leak, all right, you're driving the car, check engine light's on, you really don't care, you become accustomed to it, the light is always on in the car. But all of a sudden the car develops a problem where it's a drivability issue. Now say it's got a random misfire or a single cylinder misfire, a specific code or what have you. You're going to disregard the check engine light and just say, my car has a problem, whatever. Maybe you'll bring it in to get it checked at that point, I guess if it gets bad enough. When you come into the shop, the tech that's going to check it is going to find multiple codes. Because just because that light's been on for a couple of years does not mean it's the same problem that's going to put the light on. If you guys go online, I'll give you a quick example here. Go online and look up in Google, look up OBD2 codes. Or code, look up whatever you want. Like try to see how many codes are possible to set, okay, in just a PCM. There's more than I can name, all right? So you can have a car that'll come in, the light's been on for 2 years, and this is actually stuff that's happened to me quite frequently. They'll come in with a car and they'll say the car is shaking. Okay, so you go in and you scan it. Now you have multiple misfire codes or a random misfire code. You have evap codes. You have whatever, all kinds of codes going on, right? So you may have 3, 4, 10, 15, 20 codes in the system. And no, I'm not exaggerating. I've had more than that. Of course, you're gonna focus. You're gonna explain to the customer at this point that you're gonna focus on the problem that they're complaining about. But the check engine light will not be fixed because there are other issues in the system. So you have to be very clear on this with people because they don't understand that the light is going to remain on unless all of the problems are fixed. But being that they took so long to bring the vehicle into a shop, they waited for an actual breakdown or a failure where there was something they felt in drivability, that there are multiple systems that are having problems. So you're not going to fix the misfire, get the drivability back on track, and still at the same time fix all of the other things that have built up over the time. You're going to still have codes in the system. Some people understand this with no problem. They say, yeah, the check engine light's been on for years, this and that. Where you can get burned as a tech is if you don't explain this to the person, and then you give them the car back and they come back and say, you didn't fix my car, my check engine light's on. They knew very well that this light's been on for a long time, but they now try to turn it around on you that you didn't diagnose it properly, you didn't fix the problem with the vehicle. This absolutely does happen, okay? And it's very unfair to techs, and it's something that people try to take advantage of to get freebies at times, which those kind of people, I try to weed them out as customers. I don't want them. Because if you're going to come in knowing that your light's been on for a couple of years and then try to tell me that, you know, I didn't fix the car right because I only addressed the one issue that was causing the drivability, that's not on me. That's on you for not maintaining your car properly and not fixing the check engine light when it came on. If you have a check engine light on in the car, you have an issue. Okay, it may not be something you feel, it may not be something you notice in driving the vehicle, but you do have something wrong that needs to be addressed. And I want to be very clear on that. The other thing I want to be very clear on with this subject is that if a check engine light comes on, it's a very, very, very common thing these days for people to run to one of these auto parts stores that claim free diagnostics. I want to touch on what diagnostics are. A diagnosis of a problem means what? If you were to go to a doctor and say, my arm hurts, right? I got a pain in my arm over here. And he looks at your arm and he says, well, we have to run some tests. You know, it could be a muscle tear, it could be a ligament, it could be whatever, right? I'm not a doctor, so I mean, who the hell, I don't know. You got a pain, you like put some ice on it and hope it goes away. But if you go to a doctor, he's going to run tests to find out what is going on, maybe an x-ray or whatever he might have to do, right? MRIs, I don't know. His diagnosis is going to include testing and time, and they're going to charge you. At the end of the day, hopefully the doctor, because we know they never make mistakes, but hopefully the doctor is a good doctor, right? And he finds the results in the test and he says, well, you have a pulled muscle. That's what's causing your pain. You know, ice it for a couple of days, take an ibuprofen, you'll feel better. Okay, that would be diagnosing to conclusion, finding the root cause of the problem. You pulled a muscle, right? Okay, so if you come into a place that's going to do a free diagnostic, if you would go to a doctor, would you? My question would be, if you go to a doctor, would you expect the doctor to perform a free diagnostic on you? Okay, he's going to diagnose your pain, but he's not going to do any tests. He's just going to kind of look at it and say, okay, and well, it could be this, you know, see how you feel. You really don't have any clarity. You get what I'm saying? That is exactly the same thing as going to one of these free places where they scan test a car, okay, with a generic scan tool. Generic. Not a pro level scan tool, okay, or dealer level scan tool. They pull a code, it's the same as looking at it, saying, okay, they're seeing the outside of it, they're seeing the first layer, and they're saying, this is the code you have a P0300. Okay, it's a random misfire. You go to your mechanic and he'll fix it. That is where things get ugly for us as diagnostic techs. Because a customer will come in with that and say, here's the piece of paper that they printed out, they checked my car, they diagnosed my car. No, they didn't. And that's my first thing that I'm going to explain to the customer. They did not diagnose anything. They performed the first step in a diagnostic procedure, but they unfortunately do not have the ability to go further than that. So they looked at the surface, but they can't see what's underneath the surface. They don't know how to approach that. They don't have the equipment or the know-how for it, which is fine. But when the customer thinks that they had the car diagnosed for free already, my job becomes a big problem, because they come into me and they say to me, here's the problem with the car, here's the printout, it's P0300. And I'll say, yeah, but that's not a diagnosis, that's just the beginning. I have to find out what is causing the random misfire. Well, that's it. It says it right here. They don't understand, they can't comprehend that means absolutely nothing to me, okay? That is only the first step. Does it have a bad coil or multiple bad coils? Does it have a crank cam sensor, crank cam correlation issue? Does it have a fuel delivery issue? Does it have a vacuum leak? Does it have God knows what? There are so many things that can be causing this issue, okay? A P0300 is vague. You have to have a diagnostic strategy to approach it. Keith actually just did a fantastic video on one of these cars, I believe, on a P0300. and he showed a great approach, okay, the correct approach to finding the root cause of the problem. The point, though, being, if you get a PO 300 or any code for that matter, this doesn't just go for that, I'm using it as an example, and you go to a place and they pull a code and they say, here's the problem, that's not really telling you anything, all right? You have to test to know what the actual root cause of the problem is, or what am I supposed to do, right? I tell customers, the only thing that I can do at this point is guess. If you don't want me to do any testing, the only feasible thing that I can do is guess, right? What's the most common cause of misfires on this particular engine in my experience? You want to try a set of plugs, you want to try a set of coils, you want to try a set of injectors, because I have no idea even what cylinder's misfiring, right? I have no information. Can I go into data and see if I could find which cylinders are missing? Yes. But this is all part of the diagnostic strategy, which is I am going to get paid for my time, all right? And it's only fair that I'm going to get paid for my time. So if you don't want me to test anything, you just want me to sling parts at it, I will not do it. I refuse the job, and I tell the guy that I can't help him. I will not repair something like this without doing testing, because I've had them come to me after somebody has gone to another shop where they will do stuff like that without any questions. They don't mind taking the money. I have a problem with my reputation being on the line, okay? I have a big problem with that. So these shops will throw coils in it and plugs and this and that, and then the car will come to me and it has a lifter issue, or it has, you know, a fuel pump that's weak, or it has clogged injectors, or it has a number of other situations, intake gaskets that are bad, whatever. Okay, so you cannot diagnose a car simply by reading a code, especially on a generic scan tool. The other problem with those free diagnostic places is that they are only capable of reading maybe the PCM, you know, and that's it. And in generic, they cannot get into manufacturer-specific information. So they will read a generic code and they will say, oh, you have a PO 136 or whatever, okay? You have a heater circuit problem in your oxygen sensor. And they'll tell the person you probably need an oxygen sensor. The guy will go buy one at the parts counter. He'll have somebody put it in for him, and maybe it'll fix the car. Okay? There is a good chance it'll fix the car if it's that type of code. However, what if it doesn't fix the car? You just spent $100, $200, $300, $400 on an O2 sensor, right? But it didn't fix it. So now what? And the labor that the gentleman at the shop charged you to install it. So now you put an O2 in it, it didn't fix it. Now you have an aftermarket oxygen sensor in the car, not an OE one, right, if you had OE to begin with. So now you have a problem where you need to diagnose, so you end up at a shop that is a diagnostic shop. This guy, in turn, goes and starts diagnosing the car and finds that the computer is faulty. The computer is not turning on the O2 sensor heater. It's not a circuit issue in the O2, it's a circuit issue because the computer's faulty. So now he tells you need an $800 or $2,000 whatever computer for this car. Oh, but they diagnosed it for free. Right. But they didn't diagnose it at all. You see what I'm getting at? This is a huge problem, guys. And the techs out there that are watching me know exactly what I'm talking about. This is a constant issue. I don't know how frequent you guys get it where you guys are, but I get this all the time. I explain to customers on a daily basis how those places are not diagnosing the car, because they'll come to me with a piece of paper stating it's got a PO whatever. I don't care. I need to diagnose it. And some people want me to check it. They understand, and they see that, you know, I'm being sincere with them. This car has to be checked, and they'll let me do what I have to do, and I'll diagnose it, and we'll go on from there. Other people will say to me, you're just trying to take my money. Here's where things get ugly. You're just trying to take my money. That guy checked it for free. Those places check it for free. Why are you going to charge me? Well, I'm going to charge you because I'm going to diagnose to conclusion. Okay? I am not going to pull a code and say, hey guys, you have a random misfire. That's the problem. What am I going to change on the car? What am I going to tell the customer is going to fix this vehicle? I'm going to just start throwing parts at it, slinging parts in there? You can't. You can't. I urge these guys that are doing these free diagnostics to stop. You're not making any money off of it. Okay, unless you're just doing this to sell parts, which is what I believe you're doing, and I think it's a load of crap, and it shouldn't be. It actually, you shouldn't be allowed to do that, because you're lying is what it really comes down to. It's false advertising, and you're lying to the customer. You're promising a customer a free diagnostic, okay? It says it right in the description, free diagnostic. You're not diagnosing anything. That I have a big problem with, because you're making the jobs of guys like myself who spend the time learning and spend the money on the equipment that you actually need, the proper equipment to diagnose these cars. You make our lives a living hell when we have to deal with these people who think they had their car checked already. That's a big problem. If you're a consumer, I urge you to go and learn this much of what the diagnostic process consists of for vehicles today. Network communications, code criteria, intermittence, all types of things that you couldn't begin to fathom. But you think that they're going to diagnose by just plugging in a $20 code reader, basically like the one I gave away on my channel recently, okay, a couple months ago. They have their place. A code reader has their place for a quick check. If you want to run outside and tell a customer, let me just see what the light is on for real fast, whatever, and then I'll have to get further into diagnosing it. That's fine. You want to see if the monitors are set for inspection. That's fine. Some quick data maybe. They are not diagnostic machines, okay? They are not made to go to conclusion on a diagnostic. You need other equipment as well, okay? You need diagrams, you need information. There's no way, there's no magical machine that anybody has that you can plug into a vehicle and it'll tell you what's wrong with the car instantly, okay? It doesn't work that way. You have to have the knowledge to use that machine and what the data is giving you to figure it out. That's the bottom line. I'm going to drop that right there, okay? There are multiple lights on that could be on in a car, ABS, whatever. And what I want to tell some of you guys that maybe you don't understand, because this is another thing I get quite frequently. My ABS light is on, doesn't mean anything. My brakes feel fine, but my ABS light is on, doesn't mean anything. Yes, it means something. It means that your ABS system is not working, first of all, because once that light is tripped, it will disable the ABS, okay, on most cars that I've ever seen. It's if there's any things out there that I'm not aware of, maybe there's some that don't. I've never seen one though. They disable the ABS. So what does that mean? The brakes still feel fine. Sure they do, because the ABS system is not going to affect your brake pedal feel and the hydraulics for the most part, okay? The actual hydraulic part of it, it's not going to affect it most of the time. However, you do have a problem. Yes, it does have a problem in the vehicle. There's something wrong. There's either a wheel speed sensor issue, there's a wiring issue, there's a possibly, in a worst case, maybe an ABS module problem or what have you. But can they be expensive to fix? Sure they can. It depends on what's wrong with it. Again, it has to be diagnosed. So getting a code out of it, like I've had this multiple times. I'm sure a lot of you other guys who deal with this stuff have had it as well. Somebody will go somewhere, they'll read the code. It'll say front left wheel speed sensor erratic, or it'll have a circuit code for front left wheel speed sensor. Okay, so now what do? You throw a speed sensor at it. Now what do you do when it doesn't fix it? When you start driving the car and the light comes back on and it comes up with the same code. Now you're stuck, because now the only thing that you guys are capable of figuring that's wrong with it is the sensor. So you changed that already. So now you end up having to go to a repair shop to have it diagnosed properly. And maybe the diagnostics tech will find a broken wire. Maybe they will find a bad tone ring. All right? Maybe they will find corrosion, a connection issue. Who knows? There's so many different possibilities for the same code is what I'm getting at, okay? In any situation, and I mean that, any situation. You can spend hundreds, you can spend thousands, and you can come out where a car's not fixed because you're going to the wrong place or you're going about it the wrong way. You're trying to save money by going to a free diagnostic, going through a free diagnostic routine. There's no such thing. If you want your car diagnosed properly, you're going to go to a person or a repair shop that takes pride in what they do, is trained to do the right thing, and is going to spend the time to properly diagnose it. If you don't, then you are going to end up spending more money in the long run. Take a look at my recent video on the Buick, for example. Near $1,000 spent on that car before it came to me, and they weren't even close to fixing what was, what the root cause of the problem was. You cannot test a fuel pump by cranking the car and listening. That's not a test. Can you tell if the pump is coming on or not? Yeah, maybe you could hear it come on. How much pressure does it have? Is it working properly? I mean, come on. Guys don't own, there's places that do not own fuel gauges, okay? You cannot check a car unless it has a fuel rail pressure sensor maybe, but on a car that needs to be checked with a gauge, you need a gauge. It's common sense. It should be. I'm trying to get this information out there because I see this all too often, and I see where we get jammed up because guys will come in, want a free diag. There's no free diag, okay? I'm sorry. If I'm spending my time on a vehicle, there is a minimum charge of 1 hour. Most of the time, I will find the problem within an hour. Is that always the case? Absolutely not. Am I always fair with my customers? Yes. You need to be fair with your customers because you want them to speak well of you. You want them to come back to you. Can you please everybody? Absolutely not. The people that argue with me about what it entails to check a car because they read something in a car forum or they, whatever, or they went to a free diagnostic place, I don't want them as customers. I don't need them. I need customers that understand that we are professionals just like a doctor. There is no difference. The only difference is we're working on mechanical and electrical items instead of the human body. Aside from that, our job is just as hard as any doctor. We need to have equipment. We need to spend time training. We need to spend money on information. Okay. The only difference between us and a doctor is that the stuff we work on changes every year with every make, with every model. All right. So that's why I say in some ways we have it harder. The funny thing about that is that they always say when you're a doctor that you're practicing medicine. And the other crazy thing about it is the rates that a doctor would get, we would never see anywhere near that, okay? And it's actually really crazy that doctors make mistakes, right? We're human. Everybody makes mistakes. But the thing is, when a doctor makes mistakes, bad things happen to a person, okay? A human life. When we make mistakes, well, bad things might happen, but at least it's to a piece of equipment. Okay, it's an inanimate object. So worst case scenario, it sucks, but life goes on for everybody included. When a doctor makes a mistake, that may not be the case. All right, yet we're expected to never make mistakes. So that's another, that's a whole other story and a whole other video, but I'm just trying to make a point, okay? We are the doctors of the automotive industry, and that's the fact. Guys like Keith, guys like Steve Scott, guys like Mario, Cody, all these guys, man, that are out there, Eric O, Jim the car guy, these guys are doctors, okay, for automotive. That's what we do. We diagnose the problems when other people can't. Brandon Steckler, Jesus, can't forget Brandon, right? I mean, there's so many guys out there. But it's the truth. It's a fact. You know what I mean? That's what we do. We're like doctors for automotive. But we never get the credit that we deserve, and we sure as hell don't get the money we deserve. And that's the truth. So, you need to understand, if you're a consumer, that that our time is worth something, okay? We're just like anybody else that works for a living. It just happens that we work on cars. It's, if you call a roofer in to look at the roof and fix the roof, he's going to charge you. You call in anybody, they're going to charge you. You go to a doctor, they're going to charge you. It's the same thing. And I just don't understand why anybody would expect something for free in our industry where there's no industry where anything's free. It boggles my mind, but it needs to change. The consumer needs to be educated, and they need to understand what we go through to diagnose these cars, what it entails. And they also need to understand that these lights on the dashboard mean something. They're not there for nothing. They're not there just to make you run to a repair shop and have a mechanic make money off of you. That's not what they're for. I recently saw a video by some clown online who I'm not going to mention, but you guys all know him. He's got a whole lot of subs, and he's a real clown, so I won't say any further. But he made a video about maintenance, something about a maintenance light being on. Some cars have a maintenance light, maintenance required. That is not the same as a check engine light. I want to be very clear on that. It's not a dummy light, okay, but it is not a light that means your car is going to break. It is a reminder, okay, you should pay attention to it, okay, you should definitely pay attention to it, because they are set on service intervals, and unlike what he said, service intervals are actually real things that mean something. If it says your timing belt should be done at 90,000 miles and you go 140,000 and you blow your engine because the belt breaks, then you kind of got to say to yourself, yeah, service intervals are there for a reason, they mean something. So I'm not going to go off on a tangent about this guy. He's a clown. It is what it is. For some reason, he's got a big following. I don't know why. He speaks trash and bull, but it is what it is. In any case, the maintenance required light means something. So when you go and look at a maintenance required light, it's usually set for intervals for an oil change, some cars for an oxygen sensor, and other things as well, okay, for different vehicles. There's different criteria for different vehicles. In any case, if you look in your service manual, it will tell you at 15,000 miles, you know, maybe your transmission service should be, your transmission fluid should be replaced, or whatever. That's just an example. The maintenance required light can be reset. On most cars, it can be reset manually. You do not need a scan tool or anything like that. On some cars you do, on some cars you don't. There's usually a procedure in your owner's manual on how to reset it. So a lot of people, like when the car comes into my shop and we do an oil change, we put a sticker on the windshield that it was done at this mileage, it's due at this mileage, this is the date it's due, the weight of the oil, what have you, right? If there's a maintenance light on, we reset it, okay? If there's not a maintenance light on, we usually reset the oil change light to if there's an oil change light that's separate, or indicator that's separate, we will reset that to 100%. The oil's at 100%. And the intervals will vary on the car, okay? I recommend 3,000 miles. I don't care what kind of car it is or what engine it is. You want a good engine that's going to last, change your oil, and change it frequently. And use good oil and use a good filter. That's my advice. You'll see less breakdowns for sure. So maintenance lights are not lights that are there to make you run to your mechanic like this moron said, and oh my God, I'm going to panic. That's not what they're for. They're not to make you panic. They're to make you remember, I need to do a service on the car. What service do I need to do? Look at your owner's manual and see, all right? Guys that are out there producing these videos that are saying moronic things like that are only trying to cash in on the sheep. Okay, that's what they're doing. They're out there trying to make trying to make themselves look like they know what they're talking about, but you never once see them diagnose a car in real time. You never see them actually do anything that makes any sense or say anything that makes any sense. You know, a guy that checks a vacuum leak or an evap leak or whatever with a cigar, that doesn't speak much of his knowledge or his intelligence to me. So whatever, but it is what it is, man. In any case, maintenance lights mean something. Check engine lights certainly mean that there's an issue that you should have addressed. And I'm going to say one more thing with check engine lights. If you have a light on steady, you should have it checked. I've already covered that. If you have a check engine light on that's flashing, get that car to somebody and let him look at it quickly, okay? Because you have a catalytic converter damaging misfire at that point. Have the car checked, because you're going to cause more damage if you don't have it checked. You're going to cause more, you're going to cost yourself more money. So bring it to a real shop, not a free diag place, and have them look at your car. I'm trying to save you guys money. I'm trying to tell you guys the right direction to go with things, and I'm trying to be upfront and honest with you as I do with my customers. There are a lot of bull out there. There's a lot of bull out there, okay? There's a lot of scams out there. Don't fall into the scams. Be smart. Go to a shop that has a reputation for doing the right thing. Go to a shop that knows how to diagnose, that has the equipment to diagnose, and is going to treat you fairly. If you do that, in the long run, you're going to save money. I promise you that. I promise you. If you go to somebody who's just going to pull codes and slap parts in a car, you're going to spend 3-4 times as much as the initial repair would have cost. So do yourself a favor and pay attention to your gauges, pay attention to your warning lights in the car. Try not to pay attention to morons that are looking for attention, okay, online, giving you false information. I've been doing this a long time, and you can see in my videos that I'm in the shop working on a car, okay? I'm not at some random location talking about fixing a car and never does anything on a car, okay? So use some judgment for who you follow. Use some judgment for who you really pay attention to online. Guys like Eric O, Scanner Danner, Brandon Steckler, Mario, Cody. These are guys, and I'm missing a lot, I'm sure. Kuba is another one. Kuba's Auto is another one. Pay attention to her. These are all people that are in this field every day, in the heat, in the cold, and they're diagnosing vehicles for customers, okay? And they're doing the right thing. Steve Scott is another one. I'm sorry, Steve. I don't know how I could forget you. Jim the Car Guy is another one, okay? I mentioned these guys before. Mike, Flat Rate Master, another one. Pay attention to these guys. These guys speak the truth. So listen to the guys that know what they're talking about. Don't listen to morons that don't know what they're talking about or just trying to cash in on, you know, on ignorance. That's really what they're doing. So, guys, I appreciate it. I hope this helps somebody. I hope that I opened somebody's eyes out there to paying more attention to why these lights are on and to get you guys to realize that there's a problem and to have it checked. Even if you can't get it fixed right away, at least make a note of what the problem is for future reference. So when you have a problem the next time and the light is still on and they diagnose the new problem or the drivability problem, they'll be able to go back and say, well, I had this checked at this point and I didn't fix it, so I know about that, or maybe I'll address it now. Pay attention to your lights, guys. They mean something, okay? Thanks for watching. See you guys soon.